The sun was setting over Fort Halston, painting the sky in shades of orange and steel gray. Inside the barracks, soldiers were busy with routine tasks, polishing boots, folding uniforms, cleaning rifles. Among them was an old man, bent over with age, his hair silver, his back hunched, his hands calloused from years of labor. He was the cleaner. Most soldiers barely noticed him. To them, he was invisible. Just another figure sweeping the floors, scrubbing mud off boots, collecting empty coffee cups. Some younger recruits whispered behind his back, "Look at him. Old man can't even carry the mop straight. Bet he never served a day in his life. He's just here for the paycheck." The old man said nothing. He worked in silence. His eyes were pale blue, distant, as if always seeing something no one else could. But that evening, as he leaned over to collect a pair of muddy boots, something slipped from his pocket. An old, faded card. It landed on the floor, face up. The commander, Captain Dreisen, happened to walk by. He bent down, picked it up, and froze. The name printed on the card was one he recognized, one he had read in classified reports buried deep within the archives. "No, it can't be," Dreisen whispered. His eyes darted to the old man, suddenly seeing him not as a cleaner, but as a ghost from history. That night, Dreisen couldn't sleep. He dug through the restricted records in his office, searching for the name. Elias Koren. The files were yellowed, the ink faded, but the story was unforgettable. Elias had been part of a covert unit 3 decades earlier, known only as Shadow Company, a unit officially erased from existence, their missions buried under classified stamps. The reports told of operations so dangerous they sounded like myths. Ambushes in snow-covered valleys, rescue missions deep behind enemy lines, entire platoons saved because of decisions made by a single man. But Elias Koren wasn't listed as a commander. He wasn't even supposed to be alive. His name was scribbled across one final report. Presumed KIA, body unrecovered. Yet here he was, mopping floors. The story cut back, decades earlier, the winter of 1991, a frozen wasteland in the northern mountains. The unit known as Shadow Company crouched in silence on a ridgeline, their breath turning to mist in the freezing night air. Below them, an enemy convoy moved through the valley, trucks carrying prisoners, fuel, weapons. Their mission: stop the convoy at all costs. The commander whispered orders, but it was Elias, then a young sergeant, who saw what others didn't. The convoy was bait. The real enemy force was hidden in the tree line, waiting for Shadow Company to reveal their position. "Don't fire," Elias warned. "It's a trap." The others hesitated. The commander, blinded by the mission, raised his hand to give the order. Elias tackled him down, muffling the signal. Seconds later, artillery fire lit up the ridge where they would have been standing. The mountains roared with explosions. Half the unit would have been dead if Elias hadn't acted. When the smoke cleared, Elias led them down into the valley, not to attack, but to rescue. Inside one of the trucks were prisoners, Allied soldiers, beaten, starved, chained. He freed them under gunfire, carrying one man on his shoulders as bullets cracked past his head. That night, Shadow Company lived because of Elias, but the official report credited the commander. Elias's name was buried in the margins. Back in the present, Captain Dreisen leaned back in his chair, staring at the file. Elias should have received the highest honor. Instead, he disappeared from history. Why? The next flashback told him why. It was summer 1994. Operation Silent Echo. Shadow Company was sent deep into a hostile desert city to eliminate a high-value target. They succeeded, but at a cost. The enemy retaliated with overwhelming force. Buildings collapsed, fires consumed the streets. Elias had been the last man out, carrying wounded comrades through the chaos. But a blast buried him under rubble. The unit barely escaped, assuming he was dead. His file was closed. Except Elias hadn't died. He clawed his way out after 3 days, crawling through ruins with shattered ribs and bloodied hands. Locals found him, nursed him back, and smuggled him out. When he returned, the unit was gone. His name erased, his existence denied. He chose silence over glory. Now, years later, Elias scrubbed boots in silence, carrying a past no one believed, until Captain Drayson confronted him. "I read the files," Drayson whispered. "You're Elias Corrin, Shadow Company." The old man's pale blue eyes met his. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, "Files don't tell the truth, Captain. They tell the version someone once remembered." Drayson leaned forward. "Then tell me yours." Elias shook his head. "The truth is heavy, and once you hear it, you carry it forever." That night, the young recruits gathered in the mess hall, laughing about the cleaner. But when Captain Drayson entered, he silenced them with a single word. "Stand." Confused, the soldiers rose to their feet. Elias shuffled in behind him, mop in hand. "This man," Drayson said firmly, "once saved more lives in a single night than all of you will in your careers combined." The room froze. Laughter died. The recruit stared at the old man with wide eyes. Elias lowered his head, uncomfortable in the spotlight, but the scars on his hands, the distant look in his eyes, told them more than words ever could. And then Elias began to speak. "It was winter. The sky was burning red, and we thought we wouldn't see the morning." The screen faded to black. Elias's voice was gravelly, carrying the weight of years. The young soldiers leaned in as he spoke, their usual smirks replaced with uneasy silence. "It was the summer of '96. We were deep inside the Ashara Highlands, a fortress carved into stone. Intelligence said it was just a munitions depot, but it wasn't. It was a trap designed to wipe us out." The room blurred into the memory. Shadow Company moved through jagged canyons, heat shimmering off the rocks. Suddenly, the cliffs exploded in fire. Mortars rained down, machine guns thundered, men screamed. The commander panicked. Radios went dead. Confusion reigned. Elias crawled through dust and smoke, dragging wounded men into cover. The air smelled of sulfur, blood, and fear. "We weren't supposed to survive that night," Elias continued, "but sometimes survival isn't about orders, it's about choices." He remembered spotting a fuel truck halfway up the slope, enemy guards smoking cigarettes beside it. An idea sparked. With shrapnel in his leg, Elias crawled uphill alone. He slit the hoses, let fuel spill across the rocks. Then, with shaking hands, he tossed a flare. The mountains roared. Fire rolled down like a river of death, swallowing enemy positions, buying his unit a chance to escape. "But choices have consequences," he whispered. The fire didn't care who it consumed. Enemies, friends, innocents caught between. The recruits stiffened. They realized this wasn't a tale of glory. It was survival, paid in blood. The flashback deepened. Elias carried 2 men out of the inferno, but he couldn't carry the third. He saw the soldier's hand reaching for him as flames closed in. "I still see his face," Elias muttered. "Every night." Silence choked the room. Captain Drayson swallowed hard. "Why didn't you come back? Why disappear?" Elias's eyes narrowed. "Because the world loves heroes until it learns what it cost them. Then it buries the truth to keep the story clean." He clenched his fists. "They decorated others, but me, they stamped presumed dead. That was easier than explaining the fire, easier than explaining the screams." One bold recruit finally spoke. "You were a soldier, a legend. Why are you a cleaner?" The question stung, but Elias didn't flinch. "Because pride doesn't wash away blood. I scrub floors because it reminds me of what I owe. Every tile, every boot, every step. It's penance." His words sliced through the room. The recruits' smirks were gone, their eyes lowered in shame. Later that night, Captain Drayson sat alone in his office, Elias's file open before him. He wrestled with a choice: expose the truth and rewrite history, or respect Elias's silence. He looked out the window, seeing the old man mopping the hallway, steady, unbroken. Finally, Drayson stood, walked into the corridor, and saluted. The recruits nearby froze. A commander saluting a cleaner? But Dryson's voice carried authority. Respect isn't given to the uniform, it's given to the man. One by one, the recruits followed, standing tall, hands raised in salute. Elias paused, eyes glistening. He didn't smile, but his grip on the mop tightened, as if it were a rifle once more. That night Elias dreamed of his fallen brothers, the faces of men who never came home. In the dream they weren't angry. They were waiting, smiling faintly. "Not yet," he whispered to them. "Not yet." When he awoke, the barracks were silent. But for the first time in decades, he didn't feel invisible. The camera panned across the base, boots lined in perfect rows, rifles gleaming, young soldiers training with renewed fire in their eyes. And there, in the corner, the old man with the mop. Not forgotten, not mocked, but honored in silence. Narrator's closing words. History often forgets the names that carried it forward. Some men live in shadows, not because they are weak, but because they chose to bear the weight others could not. And sometimes, even a cleaner carries the scars of a war that never truly ended. Fade to black. If stories like this moved you, don't let them fade into silence. Subscribe now and join us as we uncover the hidden legacies the world must never forget.